Hello and welcome to the New York Stock Exchange. I am live right now with Beverly Chandler. She's managing editor at ETF Express. Beverly, thank you for joining me today.
Thank you so much for having me, Doug. It's always a great pleasure to come on and chat with you. As you can hear, as you know, I'm based in the UK, but we do have this global title, so it's good to catch up with the conversation over the pond.
We do, and I know you have a big event coming up. We'll get to that in a moment, but for those that are listening in who maybe aren't following ETF Express as closely as I am, could you tell us a little bit about yourselves?
Thank you so much. So ETF Express was founded in 2006, so it's been going a really long time, and that was in England. But we are a global title. We've been writing about ETF launches and interviewing managers and issuers and service providers around the world since 2006. We launched awards in Europe in 2010, and we have an unusual method of organizing our awards. We're not pay to play. We have a qualitative and a quantitative screen for our awards. So if you're an issuer, you are get to be nominated by our data partners Track Insight, and then you go through a voting process from your peers. And if you're a service provider, you can nominate yourselves, but then you equally go through a voting process from peers. So it's not pay to play, and it's not sort of going into a dark room and with a committee and coming up with a random, obviously strong, but ours is voting. We like that. The firms with the most votes win. So we've been doing them in Europe since 2010, and then we launched them in the US in 2019. And then, of course, we had a couple of years where we did them from home, which was, an interesting experience, but not the same. And then we added in Canada in 23, and we're very much hoping to expand into Asia next year. If you win an award, you get to come to our party, which is the awards event. And our one for the US this year will be on the 24th of October. If you don't know about it, I'm sorry, it means you haven't won one. But also, you're sworn to secrecy. So there's this kind of, tricky thing there. Tricky not to let anything out of the bag, but keep it discreet. But if you've won, you'll be there on the 24th of October.
So Beverly, before we get into the Oscars of ETFs, here in the US, it's been an unbelievable year for ETFs. I mean, we've cracked the 10 trillion mark in assets under management. 3/4 of our launches this year are all actively managed. They're gaining a third of all net cash flow. What are you seeing across the pond? How has Europe been for ETFs? What's the growth been like?
It's absolutely extraordinary. I mean, it is an extraordinary year. Europe, I believe, has gone through 2.23 trillion. So we're making up that total, which is over 14. So, I mean, you clearly are still bigger, but, we're keeping our end up over here. The thing that's really been interesting for me is the variety of launches. So when I first joined the industry in 2015, I actually came from the hedge fund industry. And so I kissed goodbye a number of very active strategies and was focusing on vanilla ETFs and learning about how they worked. Well, lo and behold, up pop ETFs based on CLOs. I'm having to dig in my memory as to what those are and also how on earth that could work in an ETF. That's been really popular this year. I've done a few interviews on that. Option strategies. We had Bloomberg saying they ballooned, and they certainly did. So all of those sort of defined outcome option strategies that give you some sort of buffer, safety from extreme volatility, they've had an amazing year. And I'm finding myself increasingly interviewing really active stock pickers. So there's no index in these ETFs. So everything I was taught in 2015 is like, we follow the benchmark, out it's gone. And now we're back to having active stock pickers who are allowed and able to be very nimble within the ETF structure. They love it because it is nimble. It's very cheap, it's low cost, it's transparent, it's liquid. For them, it actually works really well. So very sweetly, I'm seeing people arriving from my old world going, ETFs are great, which is really nice to hear. And I think we'll continue. And the numbers you just said, remind me what you just said about the growth of active ETFs over this year.
Yeah, I mean, we've had a third of all our cash flow this year in active ETFs, which has been amazing. I guess the one big question for you, Beverly, is if I'm a global investment manager, I'm thinking about the European marketplace. I want to track it. I want to know what's going on. How do I do that through ETF Express?
Oh, you're lovely. So yes, read ETF Express. We try to be live. We're a digital site only, and we are pretty much reporting the whole time. And so we have a fabulous launches column, which is we do in partnership with Stocks, the European Index series, and we run weekly launches based in North America, Canada, and non-North American, so the rest of the world. I can tell you that in mid-September, having had quite a quiet summer, where August went a little quieter, mid-September we had close to 50 launches in a week in the US, which you would know a bit about. I think you were involved with most of them. So it's a busy old time. There's a lot going on and a lot of new product arriving.
And as a reminder, if you're looking for information about Europe or the global markets, you've got ETF Express. If you're focused on the US here, of course, don't forget ETF Central, brought to you by the New York Stock Exchange, the home of ETFs. Beverly, I will cross my fingers that I get to see you in person at the ETF Oscars coming up at the end of October, brought to you by ETF Express. For those that maybe don't get invited or they want to watch later, is there going to be a place they can find out about the winners?
Yeah, absolutely. We publish a special report and we'll have all the photographs from that night. We'll be on the site. We do a lot of social media support, and people from the event can actually use social media to report that they're there.
Thank you so much. Well, Beverly, thank you for the time today, helping us understand more about ETF Express and the upcoming awards. For those of you listening in, thank you. As a reminder, you can find all of your ETF news here about the U.S. anyway at our website, ETF Central, brought to you by the New York Stock Exchange, the home of ETFs.